Hi everyone, and welcome to Southborough Connects. My name is Doug Peck. I am the chairperson of the Council on Aging in Southborough and the longtime Southborough resident. This show in the past has been about finding information for people who really wanted to stay and live and age in Southborough and to age well. It's still going to be about that, although I'm introducing a new piece to that, particularly as we approach the 300th anniversary of the town of Southborough in 2027. I'm part of the senior center, and in my job there and in just meeting a lot of people, we've come to realize there are a lot of very, very interesting people in the town that I think people don't know about, and they should. They should realize how the wealth of the town is their people, and we have a very diverse group of folks in the town that have been, some have been here for 20 years, some have been grown up here and went to Peters High School. So I hope to get more of those in for some interviews in the future. Right now, I have with me a friend I met about 2 years ago, maybe, or more?
No more than that.
No more than that.
Yeah.
His name is Bob Barnes. Bob has been in town for about
22 years.
22 years. And Bob had a very interesting profession. Bob was first viola. Viola, that's what I said, for the Boston Symphony for
50 years.
50 years. Yes, you heard that right. 50. So Bob, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I know Bob gave a little talk at a group that we all both belong to called the Dull Men's Group at the Senior Center that meets every Friday morning. And everybody was just fascinated by it. So I thought he would make a great first guest. So tell me a little bit about sort of your, I don't believe you're a native New Englander, so tell me a little bit about your early history and sort of your early music history and what led you to the BSO.
Sure. I grew up in Detroit.
Oh, okay.
And came from a musical family. My mother was a French horn player, professional.
Mm-hmm.
My father was an amateur violinist. And I have a twin brother.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we both started on violin
Mm-hmm.
at the age of probably 7.
Huh.
And my dad started us off. He taught us for 2 or 3 years. So that got us going.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we'd sit down and play string quartets. My mother would play the cello part.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which was sort of interesting. And I was on violin at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Daryl on viola, my dad would play the violin part.
Huh.
So that's kind of, we had a group thing going with the family. And let's see, what else?
So did you play in high school too? Did Detroit have a band, or was it more of an orchestra, or both?
We had both.
Okay.
It was a citywide school.
Mm-hmm.
I forget what they called it back then, but they drew kids from all over the city.
Oh, okay. Yep.
For this particular high school. So it was a very well-known high school.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a very fine orchestra
Really?
there that everybody knew about because they were so well-known. It was such a progressive school.
Mm-hmm.
So I was in both the orchestra and the band because I played French horn in high school.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Boy, those are very different instruments.
They are, yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't get too far on the horn. I got through high school on
Oh,
it,
is that
but
right?
my brother was much more talented on the horn, and he went pretty far on the horn.
Really?
Yeah. But we were both string players.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you chose the viola over the violin.
Yeah. Yeah, I switched when I was about 20 years old
Okay.
because I liked the sound of the viola.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if I was thinking, might be my own classification. You have a violin, you have a viola. Is the next step up then cello?
Yes.
Okay.
And then string bass.
And then a string bass.
Right.
Okay. So it's a little bit deeper of a.
Oh, yeah, much bigger instrument.
Much bigger instrument.
Yeah,
Okay.
sure. If you see jazz bands,
Mm-hmm.
they're playing that size bass.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
they
it's
play the big stand-up
the
bass.
big stand-up bass,
Yeah.
right.
So how much bigger is the viola than the violin?
It's bigger around
Okay.
and longer. It averages about 2.5 inches longer in length than a violin.
Okay.
And it's tuned differently too.
It is.
Yeah.
In an orchestra, are there as many sort of solo parts for viola as there is for violin, or do you play together with the violin
it's mostly
section?
as a section.
Okay.
If there's a solo, it's the first chair in the section that'll play the solo.
Okay.
And that would be the first stand in the viola section. We have 12 violists in the viola section.
Really?
Yeah, in the orchestra.
How many violinists?
About 32 or 3.
Wow. I didn't
Yeah,
realize
that's
there
a
was
full
that
orchestra.
many. Yeah.
So 8 basses,
Okay.
12 cellos. So it's really full size,
Yeah.
the group. Yeah.
So where did you go after high school to get your musical
Well, I only went to
education?
college a couple years,
Okay.
just regular program, nothing. I did sort of music and
Oh,
academics as well.
okay.
But then I got in the Detroit Symphony on violin. And after 2 years in college, I realized I couldn't do both.
You couldn't do both.
Yeah. So I quit college, stuck with the
Huh.
orchestra.
Did you have a private tutor then to get into the Detroit Symphony? I mean,
Not really. I had to audition for it, of course.
Okay.
Yeah. And the conductor knew me because my mother was very big on having her twin boys known around the
I
Detroit
can
area.
imagine.
So
I
we
can
were
imagine.
fairly well known anyhow. And so I auditioned for Detroit
Mm-hmm.
with the conductor. And he liked my audition, so he hired me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
But isn't that unusual not to come up through a conservatory, or is that more modern now than it was back then? I
No,
mean,
not really. It never happened.
Yeah.
My dad wasn't interested in us to go to music school.
Okay.
He wanted us to do the academics,
Oh.
and that was really important to him.
Yeah.
But he understood that music was a big deal to us, so we sort of combined those. In high school, we combined the music program with the academics as well. Actually, my dad was instrumental in setting that up with the school,
Oh, really?
so we could combine the two things successfully. So that was our high school program.
Huh.
And what else? Let's
So
see.
did you have one specific teacher that really sort of helped you get to the next level, the professional level, or again, was it just
Well,
something
actually,
that you
yeah, the person that actually conducted the orchestra was interested in us as musicians.
did? Okay.
He actually set up a string quartet with us, which is 2 violins, a viola, and a cello.
Mm-hmm.
So that was set up with myself, another violinist, my brother on viola, and my eventually wife on cello.
Oh, really?
Yeah. We've known each other since we were 10 years old.
Wow.
We just celebrated our 60th anniversary.
Congratulations. That's amazing.
So we
That's
have a long
amazing.
history together.
I would say so.
Yeah.
Did she end up playing music professionally in either in Detroit or out here?
No, it was
No?
amateur playing for her, but she played in Florida for a couple years
Okay.
in a professional orchestra. But we got married, we had kids, and that took care of her profession.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you were in the Detroit how long did you play in the Detroit orchestra?
6 years.
6 years?
Yeah.
And then you moved to
Auditioned for Boston.
for Boston.
Yeah. And at that point, it wasn't as tough as it is now. There were 17 of us
Okay.
auditioning for one chair.
Mm-hmm.
These
Wow.
days, there's at least 100
Really?
people auditioning, yeah. Everybody wants to be in music,
Yeah.
but there's not that many positions in the country, you know.
Not that many orchestras, is there?
I mean,
Really?
you have a definite number, usually about 100 people in an orchestra.
Okay.
And each section has a very difficult time to get those people in a very limited number of openings in the orchestra. Viola openings are quite rare.
Really?
Cello openings, there aren't that many. Violins are usually several openings, maybe 5 or 6 openings. But there are so many positions to be filled that
Yeah.
it's tough to get in.
So you had to travel. You were living in Detroit, so you traveled
Right.
out here
Right,
for
to take the audition.
Okay.
Right.
What was that like?
Taking the audition,
Yeah.
scary.
Yeah, scary. So you had the conductor there. Who was the conductor at the time? Do
At the
you-
time, it was Eric Leinsdorf.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That name rings a bell, but that was a long time ago.
He was conductor of the Met Opera Orchestra as well.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've actually, unusually, I've been through 5 music directors in my career,
Really?
which is sort of unheard of, but
Yeah.
it's just transpired.
Long live. You're
Yeah.
long-lived, I guess,
Yeah,
to
yeah.
do that. So you had Eric, was he was then you spent a few years under him at the
Yeah,
VSO?
he hired me. He was there about 6 years
Okay.
after that. And then William Steinberg was the next music
Okay.
director, who had been conducting it with Pittsburgh, and he also conducted us as well.
Oh, wow.
So, and then they got Seiji Ozawa, of course,
Right.
who was here for almost 30 years as a music director,
Yeah.
which is unprecedented,
It is.
you know.
It is. What was he like, to work
Well,
with?
interesting. Being Japanese, there is sort of a unspoken conflict in a sense, because
Uh-huh.
he was trained over there.
Yeah.
He wasn't trained over here. He studied with Lenny Bernstein. I mean, Bernstein recommended him for Boston.
Right.
But the whole personality is different, and the way they feel music is quite different.
Mm-hmm.
So there were times when we were uncomfortable with him because we had a different feeling about the music than he had. He had an incredible memory.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was all in memory, all
I'm
the
sure
music.
you have to have
Yeah.
with that many instruments.
Yeah.
But so did he prefer some to play Bach or Beethoven or whatever over another, or is just his interpretation of that music that was
It
different?
was how he interpreted, and some he was very good at it,
Uh-huh.
and some, from my perspective, was not as successful.
Okay.
But so the contemporary music he was very good at. Anything very complicated rhythmically, he was sensational at.
Really?
Yeah, his stick conductor was phenomenal.
Hmm.
Yeah. So it was an interesting 30 years with him.
I can imagine.
Yeah. He was also very good with parties.
What do you mean?
We had several trips to Japan,
Oh.
obviously, with the orchestra, and he would inevitably have a party for the orchestra.
Oh.
So the guys had a lot of fun, got
Yeah.
a little bit loopy by the end of the evening.
So, yeah, I know we don't often think of them. We think of the Boston Symphony or the New York, but we didn't realize you really traveled quite a bit.
A lot,
A lot.
yeah.
So you went
Must
to
have it,
Japan
yeah.
and then Europe.
Europe.
Yeah. How often would you go seasonally to Europe every season?
No,
or
but
just-
I would say every couple of years we would go.
Okay.
So it was very regular.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you would play. You would go as the symphony. You wouldn't go as an individual, though,
Right.
would you? No.
No, usually they would try to book us on 2 different flights
Okay.
to get us over there. Yeah.
Well, with all the instruments and
Yeah,
everything.
right. That was a big deal.
Yeah. So you would stay, would you travel, say if you went to Germany, would you go to a couple of cities there? Or
Yeah,
were you,
sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Berlin was a big one.
Yeah,
That was an important one. Yeah.
yeah.
And we enjoyed Berlin because their music hall had fantastic acoustics.
Really?
Yeah. So it was a pleasure to play there. Yeah.
I hear Symphony Hall ranks fairly high. In terms
I think
of
it's one of the greatest halls in the world.
Really?
It's very high.
Yeah,
I've always said that playing in Symphony Hall is like having a Stradivarius
yeah.
because it complements your instrument so well, and it's so easy to play in Symphony Hall.
Okay.
I've played in enough halls around the world to know that Symphony Hall is one of the great halls in the world.
Really?
So I felt honored to be able to play there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When we talk about, complementing it, was it more of a compliment to the strings or just the orchestra in general?
I think the whole orchestra in
Okay.
general. Yeah. We had an interesting event happen in the hall.
Mm-hmm.
The orchestra stage, the wooden stage,
Mhm.
was getting so old, it was like 150 years old by
Oh,
then.
wow.
And so they were getting concerned about it.
Mhm.
So they decided they were going to put a new flooring. And of course, it changed the acoustics.
Yeah.
Yeah. In some ways, it was better.
Uh-huh.
The string players loved it.
Yeah.
The wind players, not so much.
Well, you don't think of all these little
Oh,
differences.
yeah, they make a difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. And all the players have different opinions about
Oh, yeah.
different
Different
things.
Different conductors, they all had different opinions on what they thought. We did evaluations on conductors to get a
Really?
sense of what the orchestra felt. It was always a very interesting process to see what we came out with.
Huh.
We did that partially to try to decide who we would like to have guest conduct the orchestra.
Oh, I see.
This was a way to get the orchestra's input
Right.
on this whole process.
Yep.
So they did that all the time I was in the orchestra.
Well,
Yeah.
did you have many guest conductors come in? Did they come
Oh,
in
sure.
like once a year or
Yeah.
twice, whatever?
No, we have maybe 5 or 6 guest conductors a year.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And the actual music director of the season, let's say there were 35 winter concerts, he
Wow.
would maybe conduct 25.
Okay.
So they would have to fill all those other weeks.
Right.
Because to do a whole season for one conductor would be too difficult.
Really?
Because you have to have programs for each week.
Yeah.
So,
And they make up the programs.
yeah, the
and-
conductors make up the programs.
Wow.
Right.
So, did you also play in Tanglewood then?
Oh,
Did-
yeah.
Yeah?
That's part of the deal.
Yeah.
The summer program in Tanglewood, of course, is beautiful
Right.
and a very popular venue for the orchestra. It's the orchestra's venue.
Yeah.
You know, it's the BSO play in the
Right.
summer place.
Right. Does the full orchestra play out there?
Oh, yes.
It does, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And did you play with the Pops at all?
Yes, that's part of the deal.
Is it?
Yeah, it is. That's part of the contract. Pops happens for us mostly in May and June.
Right.
Yeah. It used to carry over into part of July, but that doesn't happen anymore. They have an orchestra here that they call the Esplanade Orchestra, they
Right.
call it. And they do 4 to 6 weeks of Pops themselves.
Okay.
So we're able to extend the season in Tanglewood to an 8-week season.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So you had different conductors there too. What were
Oh,
they
yeah,
like? We
sure.
had the most famous one is Arthur Fiedler, right? For
Yeah,
the-
he did a Pops concert there
Right.
constantly, yeah. But he was only there, he was in the orchestra conducting for maybe my first 5 or 6 years
Oh, okay.
before he retired. And then, of course, we got John Williams,
Right.
which was a big deal.
Right. That
He
must
was-
have been really.
Oh, he was a big boost for the orchestra,
Yeah.
for the Pops. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you enjoy playing his music?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It was fun. It was very difficult.
Really?
The writing was very complex. Yeah.
Huh.
You really had your work cut out for you to
Yeah.
be able to play it. Yeah.
I can imagine some of the, not that any of those pieces are easy, but some of the more standard pieces you've played so often, it's a little, it's more routine
Yeah,
for
you got the hang of it.
You get the
after a while.
hang of it, yeah, as opposed to John coming up, with it, you have to, you're starting it right with after he wrote it, right?
Yeah,
Some of his
right.
music.
And he had so much music that we performed.
Wow, he does. He's
It was
amazing.
hard to keep up with it all. Yeah.
Yeah. Who came after John then? John Williams?
Keith Lockhart.
Oh, Keith. He's been
Yeah.
there a long time.
He's
then,
been there,
Keith.
I don't know, almost 30 years. I think.
Wow.
Yeah.
How was he? He seems like a
He was
sort
good.
of really
The audience
upbeat,
liked him.
fun
Yeah.
guy. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Huh. I wanted to ask you about. So when you were there, were you part of then the interview team that listened to new either violinists or violas that were auditioning? Was there much of that going on?
You're talking here in Boston?
Here in Boston.
Yes.
Yeah.
We have audition committees that are picked from the players,
Okay.
usually about 10 or 12 people.
Okay. Wow.
And people would have to send in tapes, first of all.
Okay.
And the tapes would be listened to, and they would make comments, and they would decide who was going to go to a live round.
Okay.
And you might get 12 or 13 people to a live round that way. Then you would have a live round, you'd have a next round, then you would have a semi-round,
Wow.
and then a final round, which was usually down to 4 or 5 people. And there were committees, of course, taking care of listening to all that and writing down comments.
Wow. Yeah.
And then we would vote on who we wanted to send to the next round,
Round. Mhm.
you know. And eventually the music conductor, he wouldn't be there for the whole thing, but he
Right.
would come in for like the semifinals
Mhm.
and then the finals. And then we would vote on those too, and we would discuss with the music director
What-
who we liked, who we didn't like,
And why?
and why, and
Yeah.
then we would come to an agreement about who we should ask to join the orchestra.
Huh.
And then they were put on trial
Okay.
for the first year.
A probation like for the first year.
Probation like, yeah.
Huh. Did most of them stick for the first year? Or I'm sure you might.
Yeah,
have
well,
one.
they kind of gave everybody a 1-year shot unless there was something really not good.
Right.
But after a year, they did another review
Oh, okay.
of these people and decide whether or not they want to keep them.
Wow.
And mostly they did, but sometimes they didn't.
Yeah.
They decided a player was not going to work out.
Is it much stricter now than when you first joined? Or was it still, I mean, it seems like that's really, I mean, to be sort of reviewed by your peers on a regular basis and a
Yeah,
committee is
well,
like
it's-
you get a little anxious maybe when
Oh,
you,
yeah.
when you start
No
to play.
matter who you are auditioning, it's a
Right.
scary thing
Yeah,
because you want the job.
yeah,
You want to play your best, and you're under a lot of pressure.
right.
So, but originally when I got in, like I say, there were very few auditions and very few people would
Mhm.
show up for the auditions.
Mhm.
As they had more people, candidates coming in, they got more complicated. When I got in, I think it was mostly the music director and the concert master
Mm-hmm.
that would be listening, and maybe the principal of the viola section.
Hmm.
Whereas now they had a 10-person committee to hear people.
Wow.
So it expanded a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot of people judging you
Oh, yeah.
in your performance.
Well, you get a good general view from different opinions,
Mm-hmm.
which helps a lot.
It does,
Yeah.
because people hear things a little differently and
Yeah.
they're watching for different things.
They usually
Well-
have string players for string auditions, but they'll also put in a couple of wind players to have an interesting perspective.
Oh, okay.
And then when they have wind auditions for various positions, they'll have 2 or 3 string players in there
Oh,
too.
Because you got to play together, right?
Yeah, oh yeah,
I didn't realize how complicated it was.
yeah, it is.
So,
quite complicated.
and that's a lot of people for auditioning for 1 or 2 slots
yeah.
on a
Oh,
regular
yeah.
basis.
Yeah,
Wow, must be frustrating to to work all that way. Well, the BSO is a world-class
oh yeah,
organization, so
Yeah.
it has to have those kind of high standards.
yeah.
But every year, so I'm sure you weren't concerned every year, but you had standards that you had to meet every year, right? I mean, you were practicing. You weren't just
Yeah, I
going.
mean,
How often did you have to practice once you were sort of a regular member?
well, pretty much every day.
Every day?
You had to practice the orchestra parts.
Right.
Some weren't so hard. As you get older and more experienced, it's less difficult because you've played some of them so many times
Right.
that you're familiar with it and you don't really have to practice it.
Right.
But you rehearse. We have rehearsals, average of 4 rehearsals every week.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
4 rehearsals and then 4 performances.
Wow. So I know people, at least I never thought of before that you have to be in good shape to be a musician. And you have to sit there a long time.
Oh, yeah.
And then you have the instrument that in your case, you're holding the instrument for
Up here for
up
a long
here.
time.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
how long is a typical concert when you're there?
That's
An
a
hour-
2-hour concert.
2-hour concert. That's a long time. You physically,
Yeah.
it must be exhausting
It
by the
is.
end of it.
There are some pieces where you play and you get to the last movement of one of the Mahler symphonies.
Yeah.
The last movement is a slow movement and it lasts for 30 minutes.
What? Really?
And you can't put your instrument down for 30 minutes. Yeah.
Jeez.
You really have to build up
Yeah. So.
resistance to that kind of thing.
Wow. You have to,
Yeah.
it's like a marathon.
It is. It really is.
2 hours at a
Yeah.
time.
Right.
Jeez. And never mind the excuse me, the concentration you have to have the mental concentration to
Yeah.
concentrate on your own and sort of be listening to what's going on in the orchestra and watching the conductor.
Right. It's a lot going on.
There is a lot going on.
And physically, you have to have a lot of stamina.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah. It can be tiring.
Yeah.
I actually tore a shoulder
Really?
during a concert. That's how difficult it is physically sometimes.
Wow.
I think it built up over the last few weeks where I'd been doing very hard concerts to begin
Uh-huh.
with. And then we got into a Brahms symphony. In the middle of the symphony, I put my arm down. I couldn't get it back up
Oh, jeez.
because I'd really torn the rotator cuff. So I sort of sat there with my hand in position, pretended to play.
Play.
But I couldn't play.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I was out for maybe 6 weeks trying to repair that tear.
Yeah. Yeah, but then you got to go back and hold it again. That's still
Yeah,
that's
then you have to
not
build
easy.
up again.
Right.
Yeah, so
Wow.
it's not as easy as it looks.
I know professionals, they make it look so easy.
Yeah, I know, that's
When
what
you
everybody
when you go
says.
behind the scenes, you see all the incredible work involved.
Yeah,
To get to that level, then to play on a regular basis. I mean, 50 years. I can't imagine there's many musicians that have played for that long,
yeah.
particularly with one orchestra. Is there an average time people play 20 years? Would you say, or
No, I would say the average is in the 40s.
in the 40s?
yeah.
Really?
Because people like it. It's a good orchestra. It's a good job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they get to travel, and I'm sure there's you're with people that are interested also in music. You have to have a real dedication to the music,
Yeah.
and a real love for it
Oh, sure.
to play that and to put all that work into it.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing.
Well, most people start at a very young age.
Right.
So you're immersed into music at an early time.
Yeah.
I mean, my mother had this incredible collection of records, the old vinyl records.
Yeah.
And she would keep buying them more because she wanted more variety. So I grew up listening to the music all the time. It was always on.
Wow.
Yeah.
That makes a huge difference to
It
have
really
that kind
does,
of an
sure.
environment
Yeah.
where you're listening to the symphonies and people that can explain what's going on. You just absorb it.
Yeah, you really do.
You really
Yeah.
do. We're getting near the end, but do you have? I'm sure everybody asked you. Do you have a favorite composer or a time period that you like to play? Or it's
Yes,
like, hey,
I do, actually.
You do?
I mean, everybody says, well, Mozart and Beethoven are maybe the greatest, and I agree.
Mm-hmm.
And I love playing their music. But violists have a particular fondness for Johannes Brahms,
Really? Yeah.
because he played viola in a string quartet while he was
Oh.
composing. And his music is so appealing to violists because the writing is so wonderful for the viola.
Okay.
So anytime we play a Brahms piece, yeah, I'm in love.
You're in love. It wasn't necessarily harder, but it just made the instrument sort of talk more. Or,
Yes,
yeah.
exactly. He wrote well for the instrument.
well for the
Yeah, he
instrument.
really did. Yeah.
Oh, this is very interesting.
And I've played chamber music too of Brahms a lot.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I love it. I played a group of Brahms piano quartets, which I adore.
Huh.
Such beautiful music.
So you weren't just playing in the orchestra. You had
No,
you were busy a
Yeah,
lot.
I had a lot of chamber concerts
A lot
as well.
of chamber concerts.
This was
Wow.
tied in with the BSO actually because they would set up these chamber concerts where you went out from the hall to some other place
Mhm.
to perform. And every year we'd sign up to do these. So I would do 1 or 2 of these every year.
Oh, wow.
Plus, I had a string quartet going in the orchestra for a while. We were together for like 6 years.
Wow.
We would do 4 concerts a year. After we finally decided we had enough, I couldn't believe how much time I had on my hands.
I can imagine.
Because it was all consuming.
It was all, yeah.
Yeah, it really was.
I can see how it does that. Musicians
Yeah.
that I know are like that. They really, it's their life. It's
Yeah,
their
it
soul,
really
yeah.
is. Yeah.
Well, listen, thank you for coming on and talking to us today.
Sure, I enjoyed it.
It's been really interesting, and I hope you folks enjoyed it as well. And we'll have some more folks like this, coming on. We have some really, really interesting people in town. I just think I think it's just nice that you should know who's in town with you. If you see Bob at the spa, say hello. Tell him you saw him on TV. So thank you very much. I'm not sure what's going on at the next show yet, but it should be something very interesting. So take care. Thanks.